How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Lumix Live. Welcome back, actually. It has been quite some time since we've actually been live, but obviously with a lot of the shows and everything that we've had going on over the last roughly about 2 months, my involvement with the various different projects has meant that, obviously I've been traveling a lot during Thursdays. So I am glad to be back, glad to actually be, kind of ready for a full schedule where we will be doing these every Thursday again at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So, we're going to kick it off this week with talking about the GH7. And more specifically, kind of focusing more on the real-time LUT functionality. So I've got a GH7 hooked up here so we can go through the menus, and we're actually filming on a GH7. And I'm doing that on purpose because I want to show you some of the things that we're doing with it when it comes to real-time LUT, and also tying in some of that ARRI LogC3 functions that we've now added that you can add to your GH7 if it's something you want to work with. So we're going to have a lot to talk about. I've got a lot to cover with how to do the LUTs, because I want to give a little bit of a refresher, because the GH7 has two separate ways to do LUTs compared to like the GH6 if you're coming from that camera, or an S5 Mark II, Mark II-X. So I want to make sure that everyone's got kind of as much information as you can on how to do these things. But also I want to be able to show you the colors that I can change and the different types of LUTs that I can apply and what LUTs I am applying. So we've got the two angles set up here. Main camera's GH7. I'm using the 10-25 f1.7 so that we can kind of get close to the same field of view that I was normally shooting with my S5 Mark II. If you are new to these streams, these are live broadcasts that we are returning to do every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, where you can ask us questions. We will answer as many of them as we can. Obviously, I can't answer everything that people ask. Things about future product, future firmware updates, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, I cannot answer those on the live stream. But if you want to know about all of that kind of stuff as it comes out, make sure to like and subscribe, get, following us on all the various different platforms. But this is a platform built for you to be able to actually talk directly to us and get answers from the manufacturer and not have to dig through online forums to try to maybe get an answer from people that may not actually know what they're talking about. If you have questions during the stream, make sure to tag at Lumix USA like you see some people doing there. It just helps me filter out and see the questions that are being asked so I can address them throughout the broadcast. We kind of go through there. Now, before we don't drive too far into the topic, if you are in the United States, we have Lumix Pro Services here. We have the Red and Platinum tier. The Red tier is free, so if you've purchased a Lumix camera recently, make sure to check out the QR code or go down into the link in the description below to get your camera registered. If it's a brand new camera like the S9 or a GH7, those may be on the page now. They may be not yet, because usually those get added when shipment actually starts. So now I understand the GH7s are starting to ship. S9s have been shipping, so the site should be updated. You should be able to add it in there. If it's not there, just give it a little bit more time as the shipping information goes through to confirm that everything's there. The Red tier is free. I encourage you, if you've got a camera, get your camera registered on there. It gives you a 3-year extended warranty. It's no cost. It just makes sure that you're covered on the back end. But if you're someone who uses your equipment maybe a little bit harder, or you're just someone who likes a better peace of mind with back-end support, you can always check out the Platinum tier of the service that we offer through LPS. That offers you 2-day repairs with next-day shipping both ways. It gets you 20% off out of warranty repairs, so if that's a drop, a break, things like that. You have some extra coverage there and some lessening impact if it's an accidental damage. You also get annual sensor cleanings, EVF cleanings, lens calibrations, firmware updates. You get access to the membership hotline. The membership hotline is our phone access that's Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 p.m. East Coast time. So if you're someone who prefers to speak to people on the phone instead of going through email or chat, you have that option available if you're in the Platinum membership tier. So take a look at those. I encourage you to get yourself registered on them. If you have just bought a camera, at least get the red tier. It's a kind of a no-brainer. You get the 3-year warranty, and you know that you're covered in case anything happens to your equipment. So, with that, let us take a look at some of the questions that came in. The first one that I want to address actually is from, so I'm just going to say Session. It says, got GH7 2 days ago and I switched from the G9 Mark II, but why does the GH7 not have autofocus at variable frame rates, slow-mo? The G9 Mark II still had an autofocus in slow and quick mode up to 120. So I have to check deeper on this to get a specific reasoning behind it. The general understanding I have is that the way slow and quick works versus the way variable frame rate works are different under the hood. Variable frame rate has always been the kind of higher tier option because it's way more flexible. It has way more combinations of frame rates, of bit depths, of chroma subsampling. So my understanding had always been that variable frame rate is the one that is much more difficult to do autofocus with, continuous autofocus with, when you're using that on the GH cameras. Slow and quick is a much more simplified version of the variable frame rate concept, with much more locked in frame rates and outputs that you can be able to do with it. So that's what it had always been. I have to check with the engineering team and find out, you know, what the difference is now under the hood between the two. As you can see, if you go through the menus on the GH7, it has a lot more flexibility as to what you can do, as far as the frame rates that you can have the camera capture at and then output to. But I will check into it. I will check with the engineering team, try to get an answer for you all by next week, and then just kind of go from there, because I did test it on my side. I don't use the slow and quick or variable frame rate that often. Actually, I think the only time I used it was on the S9 at VidCon, because usually if I'm going to be shooting at 120 frames per second, especially on a GH7, I'm just putting the camera into 4K 120 and then doing my slow motion on the computer, because I don't want to get myself locked into only having the slow motion clip. And I think that might be where some confusion comes around, that yes, the GH7, like the GH6 before it, and even the G9 Mark II, they can do slow motion with full autofocus. That's in the actual high frame rate mode, which would be 4K 120. But if you want to use slow and quick or variable frame rate, which is going to automatically kick you out a slow motion clip, those, it can vary a little bit. So again, I have to check in with the engineering team, see what the reasoning is behind it, if there is a reason behind it, and then kind of get you some information about that. But like I said, I do have the GH7 hooked up here, so we can go through the menus and I can kind of give you some extra info about where to find all this stuff if you've never played with it. But yeah, the high frame rate stuff, it is fun to play with. So yeah. If you do need autofocus in the meantime session, while I'm working to get an answer for you, the camera does have true 4K 120, or C4K 120. So if the 120 is what you need and the slow motion is the end result you want to get out of it, you can just film in 4K 120 or even 1080 120 or 240, and then when you bring it into your editor, you would just have to do your slow motion there. Some people think that it gives you much more flexibility. I am within that camp, because you're also recording audio at that point, where variable frame rate or slow and quick do not record audio. So if that's something that you need, that could be an alternative way to get where you're trying to go with that high-speed filming. So hopefully that answers that one. Or at least, yeah, kind of answers that one. Let's see here. There was one other question that came in here. Makari, good to see you back. Says, nice to see you again. Hope you're safe after the hurricane. Yeah, I'm based in Austin, so we didn't get anything from that. I got a lot of friends in Houston that are still dealing with stuff, so Thanks for the concern, though. Can Live View Composite be added to the S9 like the S5 Mark II? It's been asked. I haven't gotten an answer back yet about that. I know that there are differences as far as the image pipeline goes between the S9 and an S5 Mark II, back and forth between both. That could be a little bit of a reason why it doesn't have it, but I can ask. Geez, it looks like my internet dropped for a second there. Sorry if you skipped that out, but what I said is the S9 uses a different, because it's fully electronic shutter versus S5 Mark II. There may be some differences there as far as the imaging pipeline goes that may be the reason why it doesn't do it, but I have to get more information for you on that one. Second part of your question was, per Geeky Nerdy's video, can S9's Phase AF at higher slow and quick frame rates come to the S5 Mark II? Again, no idea. Newer cameras as they come out always tend to have obviously the newest, best features. We always do try to push and bring back updates as we can throughout the life cycle of a product. So we always do try to make sure that we're keeping the series as up to date as possible. For something like the various focus functionalities, the modes that they can work in, that's something I'd have to double check with. Again, sorry I don't have all the answers for some of this stuff. I do apologize because I am coming off of a number of weeks of that travel and just trying to get everything back into a normal routine. But I will have to check in on that one and let you know. Let's see here. It was amazing to meet you at the training in Woodlands. Glad I can finally catch one of these. Very nice to see you joining. Awesome. Hopefully you're having fun with all the stuff that we showed you guys out at Woodlands. Let's see here. 0xdc says, I've had an issue with Lumix Lab disconnecting from the GH7 when a card has cine style named videos. I did have somebody else point that out to me, and I haven't had a chance to run through and check. I rarely have my camera in the cine file naming structure just because kind of that old kind of process. I've always worked in the DCIM structure, so that's just where I know to look for videos. But I can take a look at it. I can't do it on stream because I don't have my stuff set up to do it on stream. But yeah, I will double check. If you've been able to confirm that it's only when you're in cine file naming, it's possible that the Lumix Lab app just may need an update because it's looking in different folders for it. But it is a good thing to call out, and I will bring it up to my team. Danny says, can you explain how GH7 sensor differs from the G9 Mark II? I've seen reviews saying they're the same, but saw an interview where you said they're different. Thanks. So they are different sensors. As far as going into the details as to how they are different, from a base hardware perspective, I'm not 100% clear on the differences between the two, other than the GH7 sensor is designed for use in this platform. So when you look at the profiling to be able to do things like ARRI LogC3, the general performance that the camera has when working in this platform, there are subtle differences between it. Do I think that they're going to be earth-shattering differences? No. You can already see from dynamic range tests, and actually I don't want to say dynamic range tests because most of those things online, yeah, you have to look at things where it's from a reputable source that actually does rigorous testing themselves to determine, comparison between products. Dynamic range performance-wise between a G9 Mark II from an image perspective and a GH7, you're going to get near identical, if not identical. The biggest differences that you would see is that the GH7 is going to be tuned a bit better, more for longer running video, especially because you have that the ARRI LogC3 functionality. That's really where you're going to see the differences. To say that it is literally the exact same part number, that's going into the area where even someone at my level in connection within the company isn't going to be told one way or another. So, yeah. Let's see here. I'll do 2 more questions, and then we're going to dive into ARRI LogC3. FC says, does GH7 autofocus at 120 HFR use phase detect autofocus? Is this correct to assume the GH6 120 AF works better than at 60 FPS? So FC, for the first part of your question, GH7, yes, it is phase detect in 120. The difference is that when you go into 120 frames per second, you don't have subject detection. So you use your focus boxes to put your focus where you want it. Subject detection is for 60p and under. When you go to the GH6, personally, I think the 60 frames per second was more in what I expect for focus. But that's because I don't shoot a lot of 120. So for me, I actually, like, anytime I do shoot 120, and to be completely straightforward with you, 9 out of 10 times it's more just because I'm playing with frame rates and playing around in Premiere to teach myself some stuff. I end up actually just flipping to manual focus anyway at 120 frames per second, because usually I'm playing with focus and things like that so that I can see what the ramp does and focus speed. So on the GH6, it's going to depend. There's going to be people who say that 60 works better. There's going to be people that say 120 works better. I think it's going to depend on what it is you're trying to film with each of them. The thing you have to remember is that at 120 frames per second, when you're recording that at a native frame rate, or even in VFR, you have to have more light on the sensor because of your frame rate. More frames, faster shutter speed, equivalent when you look at 180 degree at 120 frames per second versus 60 frames per second. It needs more light. So a lot of times when you see kind of testing done, there's a lot of times where people aren't actually accounting for the difference there, that at high frame rate and slow-mo you need more light. So you can get some false changes there. But I've never dove deep enough into it to really kind of come up with any meaningful difference between the two, especially on the GH6. On the GH7, it's not going to matter what frame rate you're in. It's just going to work perfectly fine for you. So, yeah. All right, last one, because this is actually a really good transition into what I want to talk about today. And it says, so I think it says Bolivian News Junkie. Could you please confirm if you can film ARRI LogC3 in Open Gate with the GH7? Yes, 100%. You can record ARRI LogC3 as long as you have the unlock for it. You can record ARRI LogC3 on Open Gate recording on the GH7. The only 2 modes that disable ARRI LogC3 on the GH7 are ProRes RAW, because ProRes RAW technically doesn't have a color, it's just what you're referencing on the camera for the log conversion there. And in our cameras, it's going to be based in Vlog. Or in MP4 video files. If you're in MP4, you can't use ARRI LogC3, but you can use Vlog at that point. So as long as you're in MOV, you're fine. You can do it in all of the 10-bit modes, all of the recording modes in MOV. You're good to go. In fact, if you are following anything from Crater and the film that they're creating, where they took the GH7 and an ARRI Alexa Mini LF and used them on set, they talk about using the camera in Open Gate because they're using anamorphic lenses. So yes, 100% you have Open Gate functionality with ARRI LogC3 on the GH7. And that actually brings us to the GH7 and actually talking about the LUTs and ARRI LogC3 and how they can all kind of interplay. So one of the things that you have the ability to do with the GH7, like we talked about, is, as you can see, I'm in MOV. I'm at 4K 30 because I'm broadcasting at 30p. If I go into the color profiles here, you'll see that you have the ability to, obviously I can change color profiles. So I have ARRI LogC3. I also have VLog. Now, a couple things to note about the differences between these two is if you notice, there is a difference between the two. As far as what you're going to get out of it. Now, this is kind of one of the big things that ARRI LogC3 is a profile designed by ARRI for this camera. So it's profiled for this camera. It's not taking our log and converting it to LogC3 or anything like that. It is ARRI LogC3 on this. And you do get the full functionality. So I can record straight up in ARRI LogC3 if I want to. But you also have the real-time LUT functionality. Now, real-time LUT on the GH7 has a new capability that when you're in the real-time LUT tool, I can toggle between both the ARRI LogC3 as well as VLog. So this means that I can just be able to work with this and say, hey, I want to have a real-time LUT look based on ARRI LogC3 because maybe I want to use the wealth of all of their 709 LUTs that they have made available online. So that's actually what I've done here. So I've got ARRI LogC3 as the base, and then I've got into the LUT options. Now, if you've never used LUTs before, or this is something that maybe is new that you're taking a look at on the GH7, you have a really cool tool where I can just tap on the LUT here, on the button to toggle through them, and I can cycle through all of these different LUTs. Now, what's cool about this is these are ARRI's 709 conversion LogC3 LUTs. So that means that I have them loaded into my GH7, into the actual system. These are the .cube files. And I can be going through this and actually have ARRI LogC3 as my base and be burning in the look that I have that would be kind of the endpoint look for the color grade that I'd want to work with. So this means that I've got some pretty cool ways that I can actually be filming if it's something where, you know, look, I may not want to spend a ton of time in post. Maybe I don't have a lot of time in post, but I want to be able to do some quick turnarounds. Or know that, hey, I know what my 709 is going to look like, and if I'm using proxies, I can have that burned into that, but then maintain the ARRI LogC3 on my main, you know, kind of full high-res file here. So what's kind of cool about this here, so right now, as I said, I've got the LUT, you know, kind of applied on the ARRI LogC3. I also have the ability to come in and I can adjust the opacity of this LUT. So you do still have the control there. So you have from 10 up to 100%. So you can play around with this. You'll also notice that you do have some saturation control when you're in real-time LUT. And you have sharpness and noise reduction. Outside of it, that's all you've got. Now I'll make sure that I leave this on ARRI LogC3. Now, there are other things that other ways that you can work with this. So if you've taken a look at real-time LUT's just going to be you pick the profile on the GH7 at least. You pick the profile that you want to base it on, you apply the LUT, and then cool, you're good to go. If you want to be recording with proxies, this is where you're going to do that. So I would, in this case, I would turn my LUT off so that it shows here real-time LUT. It's in ARRI LogC3. But then I would come into my actual proxy recording function here. So you go proxy recording settings. If you turn real-time LUT proxy on, this means that the proxy file is going to have the LUT that you have selected in real-time LUT. It will burn that into the 1080p proxy file, but your main recording file will remain as the log profile. And then you have the 3 different versions of it. Depending on what mode you're in, you've got high, medium. Sometimes you'll have low, sometimes you don't. It depends on the frame rate and recording option that you're in. So that's one way to work with it. The other way to work with the LogC3 or any real-time LUT function here is to actually come in and go and change this from real-time LUT hybrid or from real-time LUT into the My Photo Styles options. Now we've talked about My Photo Styles options a lot for a number of years on this stream. But what's cool about this now is that, as I mentioned, I've got a ton of LUTs already loaded on this camera. So if I actually go in, and I'm going to show you how many LUTs I have loaded onto my GH7 here. If I go into my LUT library, you'll see that I've got the basics here, the VLog 709 and ARRI 709. These are the built-in 709 conversions that the camera has. But I now have also added in a ton of ARRI's 80 plus 709 conversion LUTs that are available on their website for free for you to download and actually be able to work with. Now, these are the actual 709.cube files, and we're going to take a look at ARRI's website in a second because there's a couple things that you got to know if you're going to want to try to do this. And this is also relevant for when you're actually going to be editing with LogC3. But I have all of these various different looks just set up in here. So I've got all different options that I want. And you can rename them, you can change them. I left them as the name of what they are from ARRI's website. Just makes it easier when I'm actually going through to, kind of pick the one that I want so that I know what I'm looking for if I'm going to match it in post. But I'm showing you that on that camera first because I'm also using that on my main camera here. So normally for Lumix Live, we're broadcasting from Vlog, and I have the 709 conversion happening to go out over HDMI into the capture card. Well, now I'm using real-time LUT on the GH7 with ARRI LogC3 as the base, and I'm using ARRI LogC3 as the base, and on my GH7 here, I've got a couple of different looks loaded up here. Now, right now, we are in the, if I can read this, this is the teal and orange. This is their vintage look. This is the black and white look, which would be interesting to live stream in black and white. Then I've got black and white sky, retro looks. You get the various different kind of styles. But what's kind of important about this is that I can be changing these things on the fly because I've got these loaded into my my Photo Styles options here. I don't have to think about as I'm going through, real-time LUT, then jumping into the menu, then having to drop down into the menu and change it. I can customize each of these so that the look is exactly how I want it to be. So I'm going to change this back to what I had it as. Let's see, there's LogC3, log gamma, and there's the one that we were on. Cool. Let's double check a couple questions that came in here. He probably can't say, but are there any updates on the 18 to 40? Yeah, I don't have anything, any updates on the 18 to 40 yet. FC says that green looks nice, like the military color. Oh, yeah, on my S9. Yeah, this is still, hands down, one of my favorite cameras to be using. And I have a skin from AlphaGuard on it. Because I wanted to go to a silver body on it. So, cool stuff. Let's see here. That's a lot of LUTs. Yes, it is. You can do up to 39 LUTs on the S9, and I think it's 38 LUTs on the GH7, because on the S9, one is saved for Vlog 709. On the GH7, one is saved for 709 for Vlog, one is saved for 709 for ARRI Log. So, let's see here. Does the XLR2 work with the S5 Mark II? I'm guessing the 32-bit float isn't possible. At this moment, right now, the XLR2 does not work with the S5 Mark II. I don't have any information as far as when or if compatibility is coming. One thing I do know is that 32-bit is a GH7, is pretty much a GH7 only capability. So if you need 32-bit float or you want 32-bit float, you got to go to the GH7 for it with the XLR2. FC says, if I understand it correctly, with ARRI Log, I can save in ARRI Log plus real-time LUT video simultaneously, similar to how RAW and JPEG in still photo mode. That's correct. So if you're coming from the photographic side, that's a really good way to think about it, is that in RAW and JPEG for stills, we know that we've got the RAW file, which is kind of, the unedited, unaltered, maximum flexibility. Your JPEG for your quick turnaround sometimes it works great, especially with the real-time LUT implementation. I think it's kind of one of the more fun ways to actually shoot with the cameras these days. But in the video world, you've got that ability. You've got that ability to say, hey, I want to be able to maintain the highest quality that I can, but also have the fast turnaround. Where it gets even cooler with the GH7, though, is that when you have, and if I go back to the menu here and I show y'all, when you've got your proxy recording functionality, so we've got proxies on, I want to record a high proxy. If I go in and I set my color profile back to that real-time LUT with ARRI LogC3, and then I have my LUT selected that I want to work with. So say I want to go with something that's like crazy look here, right? So let's go to crazy look. Let's see. Do I have night for day or day for night on here? I can't remember. I don't think I do. I don't. So say I want to go for like this 1960s look that they have, right? Well, once I make sure that that's off, and I've got, this is the look that I've got selected, I want to make sure that I'm recording in ARRI LogC3. When I go in and make sure that my proxy is saving it with the LUT applied, this is what makes the GH7 really cool to use, is that I have also that Frameio functionality. So Frameio, we've talked about this in previous streams. Frameio allows you to take the proxy file that the camera is recording that's going to go to the SD card that's in slot 2. It allows me to take that and have that file get sent up online into my Frameio catalog with the LUT pre-applied. So I still have my my main file that's in log. I've got my graded version already up online. That's great for things like dailies, more for modern era kind of stuff. That's great for social media use. And if you're working on a mobile device, especially if you're on an iOS device, it means that I can actually have the Frameio app open on my phone. As those things are going up, I've got the file that I've recorded. I've got the 1080p proxy. I can download it from Frameio on my phone and I can start working with it. So if I'm working in a social media sense and I just need a quick turnaround for the client, or I want to be able to send something to somebody, especially if you're on iOS, I can airdrop clips to people, that kind of thing. You've already got so many steps kind of done so that you can get it over onto the other devices or other end users. It just makes the whole process work that much faster. And depending on what you do, content creation wise, makes it pretty straightforward. It can either be used as backup. It could be used where you don't send the proxy up with real-time LUT. You could send the proxy out as a log file. It's a 420 10-bit file that gets delivered. So if you have an off-site colorist, they can start working on it, and then they can relink your main files when the project's done. The camera has a ton of flexibility. And yeah, it's just one of the more fun ways to shoot with. And honestly, for stuff that I do, like this, for training videos, all that kind of stuff, 9 out of 10 times, I'm burning the look right in on the camera, because I'm going to, one, I have the luxury if I'm shooting in a controlled environment, so I control my lighting. I know what my look's going to be. I don't really have to think too much about it. I can just do that. If you're not in an environment like that, where you've got too many variables going around, well, you can have it on the social or on the proxies, cool. Or you can just be recording log and still use Vlog View Assist, or the Log View Assist, because you can do that over ARRI LogC3 as well. Let's see here. Quick suggestion request from Rhett says, hey, quick question or request about the real-time LUT. Is there any way we could also have the ability to set a viewing LUT as well that, combined with baking it in, would just unlock more? What do you mean for viewing LUT? Because you have, so real-time LUT, I think I know what you mean. So if you have real-time LUT and, well, maybe if you can clarify for me a little bit, Rhett, because I think I know what you're asking, because real-time LUT, as the mode itself goes, doesn't let you use the log view assist, because we do have log view assist, but real-time LUT doesn't let you use that. You'd have to be in log. If that's what you're looking for, I think I understand the question and can ask my team more. But yeah. Oh, the Q menu makes the HDMI output have black bars. Oh, on the main camera. On the main camera, it's because I'm still running an early firmware on it. I haven't had a chance to update this camera yet, so I can't confirm if that's exactly how it works out of it, but I'd have to double check for y'all. Cliff says, correct me if I'm wrong, GH6 max dynamic range in Vlog is ISO 2000. On GH7, what ISO delivers highest Vlog dynamic range? So it's, Cliff, it's going to depend on what color profile you're in. If you're in Vlog, it is the ISO 500. It's the lowest ISO you can select when you're in Vlog. When you're in ARRI LogC3, it's 320. Because DR Boost runs the entire range of the sensor's performance, you're not having to go to 2000 ISO like you had to on the GH6. GH7, you get to go all the way down to the lowest range that the ISO is shown. So the lowest number in there is going to be the point that you're looking for. So, Brandon says, can't get my S5 II-X to link to Lumix Lab at all. Works fine with Lumix Sync, but not Lab. Both cameras and app are on the newest updates. Any tips on getting them to connect? Yeah, they're not going to. The Lumix Lab app is not compatible with Lumix, with the S5 II, S5 II-X, or G9 Mark II at this time. That is still something that is targeted to come, but we don't have information as to when that is going to be provided in an update yet. So at the moment, the only two cameras that support Lumix Lab are the GH7 and the S9. Lumix Lab is slated to be supported for S5 Mark II, Mark II-X, and G9 Mark II at a later date. So that would be why it's not letting you connect them. Let's see here. Please ask Panasonic to issue a chart of where the DR boost in the G9 Mark II works at each ISO, please. I've asked about it, but at ISOs, it works across the board. Rhett, you got it. Real-time LUT plus being able to see a different LUT on top, but only for viewing, not baking that in. I know it's very specific. Yeah, I can ask him about that. I know that we've had some people ask about that kind of stuff, because there's an interesting use case for it. I just don't know how high of a priority that is for development in the software side, but I'll bring it up to him again. Yeah. Let's see here. Cliff, GH6 has more dynamic range at 2000 ISO Vlog than GH7 does. I shoot a lot of low light, high dynamic range scenes. No, the GH7 is going to have the same dynamic range as the GH6 at ISO 2000, Cliff. Just because we dropped the native or the base number down, it doesn't change what dynamic range performance you're getting at 2000. The GH7 technically is going to get a little bit better dynamic range because you're starting at a lower ISO to begin with. At 2000, the GH6 and the GH7 are going to be the same. The benefits you get of the new sensor, of the new design, is that we can run DR boost lower, which means lower noise and shadows, more highlight dynamic range pullback. So it's all positives on that from the hardware changes between the two. So you get more benefits down here, but you're not losing anything at the same ISO as the GH6. Looks like I have to get the S9 sooner than expected then. The S9 is a fun camera. I think it's funny reading a lot of the commentary online of people that have actually gotten the cameras, got them in their hands, and it's really nice to see like how people are kind of embracing that camera for what it is. It is a fun camera. I've said it from day one. It is an exciting camera to use. I love using mine day in and day out. What's cool is, we talked about this on a stream a little while ago, Sigma sent me a set of their I-series lenses. So I've got a set of their lenses that work beautifully on the camera. You have a couple different grip options. So if you're someone who's been, concerned maybe about the grip, you've got a couple choices. This is the Serray grip. One of the things you'll notice is that it's much deeper than the one from Small Rig. So depending on what your kind of grip type is, this could be a little more comfortable, but you've got those options for it. And then, like I said, yeah, you've got companies like AlphaGuard that are making skins for it that I applied on this one to just see, how does it look? Does it affect anything? We're not officially endorsing AlphaGuard or anything like that at this point. I got this with my own money to make sure and see how does it look? Does it cause any negative effects to the camera? And honestly, I think it looks really cool, but yeah, so you got options there. Let's see here. My question was about the XLR2 module, Wild Ride Films. Did you ask a question? And if you did I miss it? I think I did miss it. No, I don't see it. Wild Ride, if you have a question about XLR, drop it in the chat. I don't see it. But just make sure to tag at Lumix USA. William Young, is Angelbird SCCF Express card fast enough for GH7 RAW video at high speeds? I will refer you to the Lumix compatibility list. We have a list online of compatibility testing that we've done for memory on the GH7. I'm just going to pull that up here and I'll drop it in the chat for you. Here we go. That is the compatibility list, William. If the card is not on there, it means that we have not tested it and do not guarantee performance of that card. So, same with the SSDs. For tests, about your current live streaming setup on the GH7, are you using a dummy battery or a USB PD charger? Which one do you recommend? Are there any performance differences? There are no performance differences. Do I have one quickly available? 2 seconds. Yes, I do. All right. So, with the announcement of the GH6, or not GH6, the G9, no. It's one of those days. With the announcement of the S9, we also announced the DCC-18. This was a piece that was very quietly released because it's an accessory. We don't usually make a huge amount of noise about accessories. This is a dummy battery piece for the BLK22 cameras. So this will work with any of the cameras that are running BLK22. And what's interesting about this one is it's a USB-C end. So what that means is I can run this on any of the cameras, and then I can use a battery bank like something like this that's got USB power delivery, and I'm good to go. The thing you have to be careful with external battery banks, especially like one like this one's from Ugreen. It's not on our validated list. We haven't tested this to be validated with it. But you should be fine with anything that shows that it's USB PD, that it supports 9-volt 3-amp output. The difference with some of these is that you may have to actually turn the battery bank on for the camera to recognize that it's got power there. This adapter, if you just plug it in, like if I plug in a 9-volt 3-amp output, yeah, it's going to power the camera. I don't have to worry about it. Doesn't cause any thermal problems. Doesn't cause any heat because the GH7 is designed to be incredibly well controlled for thermals. That's why it's an actively cooled camera. So that's how I run my camera. Yeah, so that's what I use. Just so you see it again. There you go. DCC-18. It's a USB-C end on it. As long as you got 9-volt 3-amp, you'll be fine with it. Which one do you recommend? Are there performance differences? Yeah, and then the other thing is the only performance difference you'll see with the DCC-18 on a GH7 or on a GH6, and actually on a G9 Mark II, is if you want to use the SSD recording for over 4K 60. So 4K 60p, if you want to do like 4K 120 frames per second, using this with an external power source is going to allow you to be able to actually send it to the SSD, because the SSDs require higher voltage than what just the basic battery internally can provide for 4K 120. 4K 120 just draws more power, and it goes out of the power band that we have available. So, yeah, there would be one little difference. Can the GH7 go over 2 terabytes on the CF Express card? No, it is still at 2 terabyte. Mary Makari says, I'm going to fold and get the S9 if GM Next not coming, but please add live view composite and maybe in-camera focus stacking. Like I said earlier, I gotta check with them. I don't know if the S9 can get live view composite, because I don't know if there are main differences between the pipelines for imaging, because that's a electronic only sensor versus mechanical shutter. But I will ask. I'll be suggesting it to musicians on my channel who, like myself, are looking for a camera for Instagram, YouTube. Can't wait to get my hands on one. That low megabit option is genius. Yeah, the Open Gate Light, as we're calling it, the MP4 Light. It's a fun way to record, especially because, like I said, it auto transfers right onto my phone, so I can just have it ready to go. I don't have to think about it. I can open it up, start editing it. It's fun. In fact, while I was at VidCon, that's what I was doing with the videos that we were capturing of people who won the S9s at the event. Ticket grab machine, that was like I said earlier, that was like the only time I've done slow motions, because confetti swirling around in a ticket grab booth looks really cool in slow-mo. But yeah, recording that there, opening it up on the phone. I was using real-time LUT, so I didn't have to worry about actually doing any kind of editing to it, and it just looked really sick. It's the same on the GH7 too. Ken says, I've pre-ordered the GH7 coming from a GH5. Can't wait till the camera arrives. Awesome. I think you are going to love it. Across the board, it is a pretty sizable improvement over the last number of GH series that we've had. Cliff says, GH7 release date July 17th. I have waited 10 years for the GH7. I believe it's still on track for that. I haven't heard anything with anything on delays or anything like that, shipping wise, or any of that kind of stuff on the camera. So, Cliff, you should be good to go. Wild Ride. Okay. Does the 3.5mm jack on the XLR2 accept a line signal? And does the mic clamp have any shock absorption? Thank you. That's a great question. So, luckily, I have my XLR2 here. So, the XLR2. What you'll see, the big difference between the XLR1 and the XLR2 is the XLR1 only has these front two pot controls. XLR3 has the third one here. On the third one, you've got an option to do in 3. Working backwards is weird. In 3, which is going to be your 3.5. And then on top of it, you've got the ability to change that to line control, mic, or phantom. So you do have line in control. You do have your pot for gain. And then you do have your limit control on it. You just have to make sure when you're using it that you flip this down to in 3 so that it actually pulls the right input on the XLR2 for you. But yeah, it does have line in. And then the mic adapter. Actually, do I have it in here? It's the box it comes in, by the way. You do get a little bag to carry it around in. Although I think most of you will probably have it attached, or you have a bag of your own. The shotgun mic adapter does have some light shock absorption. It's a pretty simple shotgun mic adapter. It's got the 2 screws that with just a small jeweler screwdriver, smallish jeweler screwdriver, you'll get it right in there. They are, this one is Phillips head. My early one wasn't, so I think it's Phillips head. But yeah, just mounts right on there. You're good to go. And there is shock absorption here on the base too. So when it is attached, it is a relatively well isolated shotgun mount there. So yeah. And then obviously you get the ability to do 32-bit float when using the XLR2. Biggest thing to just remember, because I think there's misunderstandings going on. 32-bit float is not a silver bullet for audio. 9 out of 10 times you're probably going to be fine with whatever microphones you're using, for the most part. However, even if you use, where did my other microphone go? Like this. This is just I forget which Rode this is. This is the Video Mic NTG. If I were to try to record, say, like my motorcycle's exhaust with this, I'm going to overwhelm this microphone well before I overwhelm what 32-bit float can encode. So just keep that in mind. If you are recording and all of a sudden, you get clipped audio and you're thinking, well, 32-bit float should have fixed this. You're probably actually overwhelming the capsule in the mic, not actually doing anything wrong with the recording itself. You do probably need to get a higher quality mic. Wireless microphones are not, even though they can do 32-bit, some of them can do 32-bit float internally. It's not the same as using a microphone that's actually designed with the right dynamic range or the right range of pickup. So yeah, just keep that in mind when you're using it. Macari, auto transfer. Is this a Lumix Sync or Lumix Lab feature for the S9? Is it battery consuming very much? So Macari, auto transfer is, you can do it in Lumix Sync. The previous cameras, GH6, all the other ones, you could do auto transfer. And it works fine. It's a little more setup intensive on the Lumix Sync, the Lumix Sync app, because you had to go through a lot more steps to do it. You got to link Bluetooth first, then you got to go in and tell the camera, like, hey, I want to do auto transfer. The process is just a little more complicated. On Lumix Lab, you literally just connect into the app, and then, actually, I might be able to show it to you. Do I have Lab on this phone? So, I've got, let's see if I have I just updated my phone, so I don't have all of my stuff up to date on it just yet. There it goes. So, what's cool is that on the Lab app, you'll see here, you have an auto transfer option. So all I have to do is just tap that auto transfer. Then it's going to go in and it's going to connect the Wi-Fi from the camera to the mobile device. It's saying, hey, do you want to connect to that camera? Click join. And then it's going to run the process, connect through these 2 devices. And then on the camera itself, it's going to say, hey, what do you want to connect? Do you want to connect? And I can connect to it now. So do you want to do JPEGs? What do you want to actually be sending? So I can press display. I can change the size of what I want to send. So original, file formats, RAW and JPEG. In this case, it's just JPEG. Because for this, I've only got it set to send the JPEG images. Once I click this, now we're good. All set to go. You have other options with it. If you're on like the S9, that's where you'll see it'll say, do you want to send the MP4 Light option, which is the Open Gate Light option, and that will allow you to send that over as well. And then when you're done with it, if you don't want to be transfer anymore, you just tap the slider again, turns that off, and you're good to go. Yeah, makes it much easier in Lumix Lab than Lumix Sync. So, June says, hi Sean, I'm having trouble with flash photography and events. I saw mostly all your live streams, events, Let's Talks about flash, and I was wondering if it was possible to pass the engineers. I can't see a live preview exposure. Also, the motion blur on low light Gives me nausea. It shows on shows and low light events. Is there any way to fix that? Perfect for video, but with flash, I'm disappointed. I've mentioned to our team about how we handle flash live preview. I know it's something that they're taking a look at, but I don't have any other updates outside of that just yet. So I will pass it to them and kind of let them know. But at this point, I don't have any updates for you. It's been a while since I've done flash photography in a low light environment, so most of the time it's been in a relatively well-ish lit, and I shoot full manual, so it's been such a while since I've gone through it. But I will take a look and get you some more answers here. William says, I have the new DJI LiDAR Focus Pro. I know the GH7 has better focusing already with the LiDAR. Will the LiDAR with the GH7 make focusing almost perfect? No, God, no. No. Focus Pro and LiDAR focusing, it's cool. It is far from a perfect technology. There's reasons why camera manufacturers don't deploy it in the cameras. We've talked about this many times throughout the live streams. LiDAR has a limited working range. It has a limited field of view. It changes its ability depending on the subject or the object that you're pointing it at. Whether you're indoors or outdoors, it changes on how well it can work or how it doesn't work. So, no, it is not going to make focus almost perfect. No camera's focusing is almost perfect. I don't care what anyone else says online about other brands or us or whatever it is. The systems are as good as what you apply into them. The subject detection modes that we provide in the system, the fine-tuned control on the autofocusing system that we allow in these cameras, these are all the things that help you tune it to what you need the camera to do. So being able to come in here and change your AF speed and sensitivity, stuff like that, these are all things that you have control over. Going into subject detection modes, what assist tools do you want for the various different pieces here? These are things that will get the system much closer to maybe what you need as a particular shot. But ultimately, you have to still kind of understand what the system's doing. LiDAR, as I said, is a technology. It's an interesting technology. And it is really cool, especially because it helps cameras like the GH6 or previous cameras before we move to phase autofocus. It helps you get more use out of them in trickier situations where you require autofocus. But compared to a PDAF system that's built in on sensor, LiDAR is not an on-sensor based system, so you can also run into some of the other challenges like parallax, which is what some of the stuff we used to deal with when you were in DSLRs. It's a cool feature. It's really awesome that we have direct compatibility with a lot of these things. And especially if you're going to be using things like, manual focus lenses and you want to be able to use autofocus with them, it's a spectacular tool. But over top of what the camera has internally, I've played with it. I don't think it's any better. I think it's actually more of a headache to work with unless you know you need it for very specific use cases. Like I said, manual focus lenses, anamorphic lenses, stuff like that. Macari says, that's cool. Looks much easier than the other method. Thanks, Sean. Yeah, it's a lot easier on the new camera. Since Lumix Lab Auto Transfer uses Wi-Fi, does that mean that my phone loses internet Wi-Fi while I have the camera on? No, actually, both on my Z Fold 5 and on my 15 Pro Max, I don't lose internet. I still have my cell connection. I still have everything that I need on the device, so I can still access all of my normal stuff. It's just a running in the background connection. William says, B&H says my GH7 estimated receive time is around 7:18. Does that look correct? It sounds about correct, I think. A lot of it's going to depend on when you put the order in, when B&H gets their orders, when they get through their warehousing of the items, and then get it sent out. Yeah, it sounds about right. Okay. Last thing I just want to cover here before I wrap for today, because I do have to wrap at 2, is, I mentioned throughout this stream that, I'm using the ARRI LogC3 and I'm using various different LUTs to kind of go through different styles here. So, like I said, this is like, here, this is a black and white profile for ARRI LogC3. This is the one that comes from them. So if you wanted to actually record in something like this for what you want to be able to do, it can get a little confusing when you look online and say, you know, I want to find LUTs for ARRI LogC3, because you've got a number of different options out there. So if you go on to ARRI's website, and I will drop this link in the chat. LogC3 LUTs. So if you go to the link here, you'll see that you've got a page, the ARRI look files. And shout out to Matt Fraser, because he's the one who got me all this information about this. So you'll see that you've got a ton of information about conversion LUTs, about what the look files are, that kind of thing. You have ARRI Look 4, ARRI Look 2, ARRI Look Library, all this other kind of information, right? Well, when you scroll all the way to the bottom, this is where you'll see things like Look Library, Look Library's 3D LUTs, and if you're like me, the first thing that you end up doing is you say, oh, okay, ARRI Look Library, LogC3 3D LUTs. Cool. You click on that, you download it, and then all of a sudden you're looking going, well, this doesn't make any sense. These files don't work. It's because you actually have to go further down on the page. And I'm going to recommend taking a look at Dustin Armstrong's video about working with LogC3, because I've had some conversations, and his has like a stamp of approval for the proper way to do this. But like I was saying, is if you scroll further down, you're going to see a whole bunch of different little files here. You're going to see here ARRI Look Library LogC3 to Rec 709. This says ARRI Look Library LogC3 to Rec 709 3D LUTs .cube files with 33 mesh point. You'll also see below this, you'll see a collection of log to log 3D LUTs. Make sure that if you want to use LogC3 in real-time LUT and have the pre-burned in look that you're going to use after the fact, this is where you want to make sure that you are grabbing the ARRI Look Library LogC3 3D LUTs. Sorry, scratch that. Ignore what I just said. You want the ARRI Look Library LogC3 to Rec 709. You want to make sure that you're pulling the .cube files. It's a 33 meg file. There are ridiculous numbers of looks available that you can play around with, work with, if you're working in the LogC3 workflow. Outside of that, I recommend, if you want to actually learn how to work in the LogC3 workflow, in the log-to-log process, take a look at Dustin Armstrong's video. He shows you how to do it in Resolve. I am still trying to wrap my head around how to work with it. But yeah, I will, the link is in the description there. Again, you want to make sure that you are looking at the right files for it, and I'll put this in the description of the video as well, so that you have a link to which ones you want. All right. With that, I have to wrap up the stream today, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me on this return to our weekly live streams. We will be live again next Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern time, right here from my home studio. I won't be in black and white. I'll be in color, or I'll be black and white. If you guys want me to do a different look each week, I can do that. It'd be kind of weird and fun, but you know, I'm going to be using the GH7 for a while for the live streams. Like I said, I'm not retiring my S5 Mark II for this stuff, but now that we've got, I'm actually back and I've got my samples here, I want to actually play around with various different looks and see what, you know, kind of replays best on YouTube. I like a monochrome stream. I could do that. There you go. That's like a monochrome. We've got a like a monochrome look that we actually could do. That actually, I really like that look, actually. I'll have to see what it looks like when it's actually on playback for YouTube. All right. I rambled on enough. Thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in. I appreciate everyone still hanging around with these, even though we've been off schedule for a number of weeks. Next week, I'm still working on the topic for next week. It's going to be probably something leaning towards the G9 Mark II, because there's some cool stuff that as I've actually been out at these different shows, I've even learned a bunch of stuff from various different users. So I think next week we're going to talk about G9 Mark II. Other than that, if you like the stream, if you like the content, give us a like. If you don't subscribe already, maybe consider subscribing to the channel, hit the bell icon, all that kind of fun stuff. Yeah, otherwise, I will see everybody next Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern right here on YouTube. Later.